They tell you that to be truly alone is the worst thing in the world. But I'm here to tell you the truth. The worst thing is spending months with a person who was never there. And the final crushing moment, you realize you engineered your own companionship. I was always the quiet one. My escape was the old railway bridge outside town, all rust-stained iron and crumbling concrete. That's where I met Julian. It didn't feel like a meeting. It felt like a collision of two necessary things. He was just there, waiting one afternoon, smelling like cold autumn and something vaguely electric, like ozone. Instantly, he was everything I lacked. My best friend. Our schedule was sacred, 3:30 p.m. every single day. We'd sit on a busted slab of concrete we called the throne and talk. Julian had this terrifying, brilliant way of seeing the world. We'd debate dying stars, history's greatest failures, and the secret language of birds. He had the best laugh I've ever heard. A short, sharp, singular ha that cut off like a broken wire. I noticed he had this nervous tic. He was always tracing the fine, glittering, iridescent dust that coated the shoulders of his denim jacket. It was beautiful and strange, like ground-up gemstones. Then, one Tuesday, he didn't show. I waited until the cold bit my hands and the last light was gone. I walked home feeling hollow, muttering about him at the dinner table. "Julian is being so annoying, just ditching me," I complained, tapping the heavy silver ring on my finger. My mother stopped stacking the dishes. She looked confused. "Julian, honey? Who is Julian? Are you talking about the old jacket you keep in your closet?" My stomach dropped like a stone. "No, Mom. Julian. My friend. He gave me this ring. He said it was ancient and necessary." She walked over, taking my hand gently. "Elias, that's Grandpa's class ring. You found it in the attic last summer. You said it was necessary for your project." I felt the room tilt. The memory of Julian handing me the ring, his fingers cold against mine, was so vivid it burned my eyes. But if Julian didn't exist, where did the memory come from? The next morning, I raced to the bridge. I searched the concrete, but where Julian's boots should have left their sharp marks, the slab was smooth. No circular prints in the dirt. It was like I had been sitting there alone for months. Driven by panic, I went to the antique shop Julian claimed was his supplier for old, strange books. "I'm looking for the boy named Julian," I said to the owner, my voice shaking. "Denim jacket, bright laugh, always reading." The old woman smiled with a terrible sweetness. "Oh, that dear jacket. You mean the one you used to bring in here about a year ago? You told me you were making up stories about the boy who wore it and the grand adventures you'd have." I backed out of the shop, the sound of my own shallow, panicked breathing drowning out the woman's voice. I ran home and found the denim jacket hanging in my closet. It wasn't Julian's jacket. It was my old one. And clinging to the collar, reflecting the faint light from the window, was the iridescent dust. That dust was the key. Julian never traced it on his jacket. I had only ever seen Julian's jacket through my own eyes. I was the one who was always fiddling, always tracing the strange, glittering residue. Julian's sharp, dry ha echoed in my room, and in that horrifying moment, I realized it wasn't his laugh at all. It was the sound I made, a nervous, sharp exhalation, whenever my own thoughts became too loud. Julian was never an external person. He was a brilliantly constructed self-defense mechanism, a perfect companion my mind had hallucinated to cope with my own isolation. The trauma wasn't losing my best friend. The trauma was the absolute, soul-crushing certainty that I had spent months sharing my deepest secrets with the character I had created, a character whose reality I had desperately clung to, and who I now knew was only the terrifying echo of my own loneliness. I was the only one in the conversation, and I still am. The scar runs from my left shoulder blade to my ribs, a jagged map of the night. I learned that love isn't blind. It just makes psychopaths of the people you trust most. Marcus and I were inseparable. We were the kind of friends who finished each other's sentences, the kind who planned to buy adjoining plots of land someday. We shared everything, our worst failures, our stupidest triumphs, and eventually, the crushing, inescapable gravitational pull of a girl named Lena. Lena was a singularity. She didn't choose between us, not officially, but it was obvious to anyone who looked. She and I had something different, something steady. Marcus saw it too. But instead of accepting it, a kind of fever started burning behind his eyes. He'd make these passive-aggressive comments, sharp little jabs wrapped in jokes. I dismissed them. Marcus was my brother. He just needed time to cool off. A month after Lena and I started dating exclusively, Marcus suggested a trip. "One last adventure before winter closes the trails," he said, his smile feeling strangely stretched. "The old fire lookout trail. Just you and me, like old times." I agreed immediately. I thought he needed closure, a chance to reconnect without Lena as a shadow between us. We hiked deep into the Cascades, far past where the trail was maintained. As night fell, we made camp near a dizzying drop-off, the air thin and cold. I was tired, exhausted from the steep ascent, and I drifted off fast while Marcus tended the fire. I woke up because of the cold. The fire was almost out, and the silence was absolute. I rolled over, blinking sleep from my eyes, and saw Marcus standing over me. He wasn't holding a piece of firewood. He was holding my collapsible shovel, the sharp, narrow kind we used for digging trenches. And he wasn't looking at me. He was looking through me, his face utterly blank, void of the light I'd known for 2 decades. "I need her, Elias," he whispered. His voice was flat, empty, like a recording. "She won't look at me while you're still standing." That was the horror. Not the weapon, but the motive. He wasn't enraged, he was calculating. He had reasoned that removing me was the fastest path to his goal. All the years of trust, the shared laughter, the history. It all melted away in the chilling realization that my best friend saw me as a single, solvable obstacle. I didn't have time to scream. I rolled, instinctively, as the shovel came down. It missed my head, but caught my shoulder and ripped across my back in a terrible, searing line. The pain was immediate, blinding. I scrambled backward, kicking the dying coals into his face, buying myself a split second. He stumbled back, his hands momentarily covering his eyes. That was all I needed. I launched myself toward the edge of the campsite, blindly plunging down the embankment toward the blackness of the ravine, ignoring the pain that screamed from my back. I don't remember the descent. I remember scraping, tumbling, hearing the clatter of loose rock. I remember lying broken at the bottom, tasting copper and dirt, listening. I waited, holding my breath, until the distant sound of his desperate, frustrated shouting faded into the wind. When the search and rescue team found me the next day, I was delirious but alive. They assumed I had fallen. I never told them what Marcus did. How could I? How do you tell strangers that your best friend tried to murder you over a girl, meticulously planning the isolated setting and the reusable weapon? How do you explain that the person who knew you best decided you had to be erased? Marcus was heartbroken when they found me. He was the first at the hospital, tears streaming, asking why I would go off the path alone. He was a perfect, grieving friend. He never admitted it, and I never accused him. But every time I see him, and I still see him, we share the same social circle, the wound too deep to simply cut him out. He glances at my scar, and I glance at the slight burn mark that lingers below his hairline. We share a secret, a deadly, unspoken covenant forged in blood and ambition. I didn't just survive an attack. I survived the death of the one person I trusted most. And that, I promise you, is a loneliness far colder than any mountain air. Thanks for watching. If that story gave you chills, help us reach our goal of 10,000 likes. What was the scariest part? Let me know in the comments. If you know someone else who loves good horror content, please share this video with them. And finally, if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next nightmare.